I got to be honest with you. I don't really know how to start this show. And to be even more honest, I'm not even sure I want to be here today. I really mean that. I know this is supposed to be a respite and an outlet from reality, and we'll eventually get there. I promise. I promise. I'd also like to think that our bosses, specific for me, my bosses here at CBS appreciate my work ethic enough to know that when I say that I don't really even know if I want to be here, that they understand where I'm coming from, and I know they do. Teak, I'll give you the floor in a second. I just got to say a few things here, and obviously everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's no way that I could properly verbalize just how much I've always wanted to be in front of a microphone for a living. I just couldn't do it. The depth of that and the desire would never fully translate. So hopefully you just take my word for it, all right? Every ounce of drive that I've ever had in my life, any focus, any passion has been directed at doing what I'm blessed enough to do. And I know it. I'm lucky. I cherish our audience. I value my platform. But I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about Kevin Durant or Matt Harvey's shoulder or Dwayne Wade. I don't care. I mean, all I see, and you see this as well, is our country imploding. Every single angle, it is falling apart. Racial tension escalating. Tragedy becoming, sadly, more and more normal. It's soaring every night. And I'm not afraid, Tiki, because I'm okay with saying that I am afraid. Like, I am afraid, not me. I'm afraid for my son. I'm afraid for my wife. I'm afraid for our newborn who's 2 weeks away, and you're right in front of us. I don't know how this world repairs itself.
I wish I had an answer for you, BT. I understand that people are in a shock is probably too harsh of a word, because I think acceptance is something that I don't know if we'll ever be okay with what happens in this world. I think we're much more aware of what happens in this world. I'll backtrack to a few days ago when Alton Sterling was killed in a homicide. It was a police homicide, police killing him. Philando Castro, the same thing. We all saw it on Facebook Live, was also a homicide, justified or not. A lot of people want to start throwing the racist card around. I don't think it's racism per se. I think it's prejudice and a heightened emotion when there is a black person involved in these police incidences. But these things happen every day. The difference is that we're seeing them. I saw a stat yesterday that shocked me. 491. That's the number of police homicides, meaning police have killed 491 people. We hear maybe two of them. That's 80. This is over the last 6 months. That's 81 a month. Almost 3 a day. Homicides of police shooting a person, killing a person. Are there a lot of them black? No, 10% are black, which is mostly representative of the population of this country. The difference is that we see it and we're consumed by it, and it scares us because it feels like it's real. Are most of us in danger of being caught in one of these situations? No, but when you see it live, when you see it happening now in real time because of things like Facebook Live.
I'm not so sure I agree with that last statement, by the way, Teak.
It feels like
the walls of safety have been stripped down for all of us, man. I mean, you could be. I mean, the demonstration was peaceful.
I know.
You have snipers on top of a parking garage.
And all of them have been peaceful, because it wasn't just a demonstration in Dallas. There was one in New York. There was one in a lot of them. I think one in Baltimore. They were in a lot of the big cities. There were these demonstrations. Yep. And most of them were peaceful. But I don't know if you can get your head around crazy. You know, and I don't mean to simplify it like that, but that's what it is. If someone decided to walk into any building and just start shooting for no reason, or a made up reason in their head, or this is the way that I'm going to address Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter or whatever cause you want to say, I don't know if you can combat that. And all we're left to do is observe it and try not to be emotionally destroyed by it.
But what does observing solve?
Nothing.
So how do we repair this? All right, so we observe it. We pray. Does it do anything?
Well,
I
don't
like
know.
to think with my faith at some time it will at some point. I'll give you an example. So, and I do this quite, and we'll get to the sports eventually at some point. And by the way, if you want to call us, we're here. I mean, when it was the Boston Marathon, issues like this, I mean, Tiki and I really care about this world, and we're not blinded by dopey free agency or some pitcher's shoulder barking. It doesn't matter. So we're here for the important stuff. 855-212-4227. As Tiki knows, I engage in Twitter quite a bit. Once a week, usually when Jenna's getting ready to hop in the shower, Colton's down, I'll pour myself a little scotch, and I'll do no more than once a week, and maybe sometimes every 2 weeks, but fairly regularly, a Twitch chat. I'll say, hey, I'm here. Nothing's off limits. Bring it in, whether it's radio or TV, industry, or sports, obviously, whatever it might be. So I'm doing it last night. And the first 20 or 30 come in, free agency, will the Yankees be sellers, all these things that just seem so innocuous and completely trivial that I was bored. And I was almost hoping, without provoking or sparking, less about race, but more about deep conversation, meaningful banter, I was hoping that somebody would tweet a question that then I could retweet and then kind of shift the direction of the Twitch chat.
Yes.
Okay. So one comes in, and of course it focused on, as you referenced, Louisiana and Minnesota. I could have ignored it. I could have plowed through it, gotten back to the mindless sports tweets, sipped the scotch, gone to bed, called it a night, wake up, still making a good living. I can't. I can't pretend. And it's so conflicting because you listen to the show. I'm very honest that my dad's a retired detective. I cherish, I value, I revere law enforcement, the good ones. And the good ones represent the overwhelming majority. But the bad ones, the ones who wake up with malice and hate and disdain in their hearts, I'm with you on that as well.
Yep.
I don't know where to go anymore.
Yeah, or it's just those guys.
Like emotionally.
It's those guys who just don't know how to handle situations. You know what I mean? Like you get put into a situation that you're not prepared for, and you overreact. And most people doing their job, they overreact. Maybe they get a reprimand. At worst, they get fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not public.
And it's not public.
To your point before.
As a police officer, you do that and do your job poorly, like the situation that apparently happened in Minnesota. Someone dies. You know what I mean? And so it's realer than, and it's infectual. It has more of an effect on everyone around that situation, not just the individual. You know what I mean? Like if I come in and have a bad day, I start cussing you out, I get into a fight, whatever, I get fired, right? It affects me, affects my family. If I'm a police officer and I have that bad day and I shoot somebody,
it affects the country.
Exactly.
I know.
That's the difference. And it's no I think your point, BT, is that we get on athletes like Johnny Manziel, like Greg Hardy, and we try to paint that as the narrative of the National Football League, or Jose Reyes, even though it's less prominent a news story in baseball than it has been in the National Football League. When in reality, BT, the Greg Hardys of the world, the bad apples of the NFL, the Johnny Manziels, it's maybe 1%. It's probably not even 1% of the 1,600 players in the league, or thousands of former players in the league. But it's what we focus on. And it's no different now that we look at some of these horrendous incidences that are happening across the country. It's 1%, but we focus on it, and it creates a narrative that scares us, that makes us, I don't know, feel less than human at points, or at least feel like our country is less than human, when it's not the reality. The reality is that most people just like most athletes, are good people. They're altruistic. They give back. They're just working hard, trying to provide for their family. And the way that the basketball world is going, they're providing for generations of their family. But I think most Americans are the same way. They're not, even if they are as upset as anyone in the history of the world,
They're not irrational.
they're not picking up an assault rifle
Yep.
and going out and shooting people.
I agree.
And so,
No, I know that. I know that. I'm walking into Starbucks today, right?
mm-hmm.
This is a very poignant moment, and thankfully nothing happened. But you know what? I really felt like something could have. I'm walking in, and you know how you kind of. I'm just very observant. I'm always kind of looking around, no matter what I'm doing.
And this is
I
just
like people.
And this is just right downstairs underneath our building.
Yeah, 10 floors below, and then a quick maybe 30 feet to the right, and boom. It's actually quite convenient. And although on certain holidays not open, which drives us nuts.
No, it's never convenient there on holiday.
No, they can never open. So I'm walking in, and I mean this, and if people don't believe me, that's fine. Whatever. Whether it was if it was an elderly man or woman, I would have certainly held the door. If it was, I hold doors. And I just do. I mean, that's just how I was raised, and that's how I'll raise my kids. Elevators, doors. We've talked about this, an erosion of just the fundamental courtesies that have just, whatever. So I'm going into Starbucks, right? And there's a black guy walking out, and I see him probably, because the door's obviously windows, I could see into the store. And he's probably about 6 or 7 feet away from the door. And to be fair, I'm probably 3 or 4. I'm closer to the door. Now, I got a decision. Am I a gentleman? I say, go for it, man. Go get him. Have a good day. Without saying that, but opening the door. Or do I just bust through, go get my coffee, and just plow that? I hold the door. And this guy was jacked. I mean, jacked. But I didn't know that when I just saw his face until, dude, he burned a hole through me. The way he stared at me, right? And you just know why. And I looked at him. I said, you're welcome. At that point, anything could have happened. Honestly, he could have pulled out a gun and shot me. We could have thrown punches. Who knows? But the edge of the cliff that so many of us, just this heightened emotion, you can feel the hate dripping through the TV screen every night. It just, it resonates. It just pours through. Me and Jen were sitting there. We were horrified last night. And I got this a lot. And this is a fair response, and I respect this response, really. Did you feel the same way yesterday when you came in to do the show? And it was just about the young man in Louisiana and the young man in Minnesota?
Yeah, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile.
Yep. I didn't start the show this way. And somebody tweeted this at me this morning. I said, check my timeline. And you will see a consistency that matches my emotions. And you can't start a show like this every day because you wouldn't be on the air long. Nobody would want to hear it, and management wouldn't want to pay you good money to do it. But, I'm very, I'm just worried. And I got no problem communicating that is it time to act brave and tough? I don't know that this is the time. I think it's just time for real talk.
Yeah.
I don't know where we go. And I'll tell you this, when we politicize this, and we're not going to do that. That's where we'll certainly stop short. But I got a lot of that on my Facebook, people who support Trump, people who support Hillary, right everywhere. And by the way, neither president is going to unify this country, in my opinion.
No.
Both are ticking time bombs for a multitude of different reasons. But I says, you're already reaching for the political angle. This starts at home. If there's a teachable moment as a parent pertaining to race and ideology and everything that's important, and you gloss over it, you are doing a disservice to your family, but you're doing a disservice to the world. And yeah, about 4 or 5 steps down the road, the greedy politicians with an agenda, of course they're a part of the equation. But they're not the focal point. They're not the origin.
It should not be the first thought.
Bingo.
And for the last few things that have happened in this country around, that's been the first thought. And it frustrates you because
it's misguided.
Well, it's misguided, and it buries the issue. It makes what's important not important and makes something else rise to the surface, which is political.
Mm-hmm.
And politics don't rule the world as much as politicians think that it does. People rule the world, and relationships rule the world. We just need to get better at communicating them.
That's well said.